guys, welcome to Shama TV. We're shooting at the Dallas Digital Summit. I have a very special guest, someone I have a lot of respect for today. It's Charlene Li. She's an analyst with Altimeter, a profit company now. Thank you so much for joining us, Charlene. I've been a big fan. I've read all your books right from the beginning. You're such an innovator in the field of marketing, and I think very few people don't know your name who are in the marketing field, but your new research is really exciting. It's around disruption. So hopefully you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. I've always been interested in all the new technologies and really how does disruption happen inside of organizations. And I'm fascinated by all these people who push and push and push the edge. I'm just so inspired by many of the people here who are the vanguards of innovation and disruption in their organizations. But how do you systematically build disruption into an organization and organizational agility and be able to do all these disruptive things, move fast, grow like crazy, faster than anybody else in the industry, break things fundamentally, and at the same time, still keep the lights on?
So break things, but not break things.
Right, but break things enough, but not destroy things. So I think about it skating on the edge, and it's this balance of always pushing the edge, doing a risk, taking the risk, but not falling off. And the analogy I give is a gymnast doing a somersault or a handstand on a balance beam. It looks so easy and effortless, but you know they practiced so many hours and fell off that beam so many times.
To get it just right.
And so people will oftentimes think that, we just have to be innovative. We just have to be customer centric. And I think you actually have to be disruptive and customer obsessed. Those are two very different concepts. So how do you actually orient your entire organization to do this? So I think about this as, what is your to-do list as a disruptor? And as a disruptive organization, it can't just be the responsibility of a few small people. That's got to be the focus of the entire organization.
I know you talk a lot about leadership too, right? That was your last book. I'm a big fan, just great about digital leadership and what does that look like in this era. And I'm curious, for leaders who are disrupting, are there common themes? I know it's early days and you're not ready to do the big reveal just yet, but I'm curious if there's certain things that you can share that you just have picked up on from leaders who are disruptive and do it, while skating on that edge.
Well, I wanted to write this book, but I realized I needed to do more work on the leadership part because that was the part that was missing. And what I realized is that these leaders are engaged, and they are engaged not just digital, but also in real life. And so the leaders who are able to make that transition and inspire their organization and lead them are the ones who have tremendous empathy. And we talk about empathy and failure and things, but they really truly want to engage with people. They're genuinely interested in people and how they grow. And they're not afraid to admit that they have failed. They're very human, authentic. And so there's a common thread across leaders is that I will follow this leader into battle because I am personally inspired by them. And these new leaders for this digital era, and I'm very careful, they're not digital leaders, they're leaders in the digital era. Right? They know how to scale. They know how to scale their engagement and inspire people across all of these frontiers.
So do you think there's overlap between those leaders who can obviously engage right in the digital era and the disruptors?
Absolutely, because I don't think you can move fast unless you can keep up with your customers. And your customers today
move really fast.
And they oftentimes do it in digital. So how can you as a leader tell your organization to be digital if you're not digital yourself? How can you keep up with fast-moving customers and fast-moving employees chasing the customers if your leaders aren't fast-moving, chasing all of those things?
Right.
So the speed of information, the decision-making, the ability to move people and mountains of resources. People say my organization is too big to turn because it is an aircraft carrier. Well, have you ever seen an aircraft carrier turn? It takes 2 to 3 miles for it to turn, but it does turn. And when that captain gives the order, everybody makes that ship turn.
Right.
And then it's a force to contend with once it turns. So these large organizations, oftentimes people think, I can't turn it, so I'm not even going to try. And the most disruptive organizations are the ones who can say, I know how to turn this. I have confidence in my ability of this organization to flex, to be agile, to be disruptive on a turn of a dime, on a turn of a command.
So do you think disruption used to be like this opportunity, right? Where if you disrupt, you can be kind of ahead of the pack, you can have all these things. Now do you think it's almost, in some ways, if you don't disrupt, it's a threat?
Absolutely.
Where if you're not disrupting, you're getting left behind?
If you're either be disrupt or be disrupted.
Yeah.
So either you go as fast as you can and faster than all of your competitors, and frankly, compared to every other brand that has engagement with your customer, because they're comparing you to people outside of your industry now.
That's
because
right.
of the UX. So you've got to move faster than them. And if you are going to be operating in a real-time environment, and everything is real-time now, you have to be faster than real-time to anticipate that.
So how much of this is mindset and how much of this is tools?
I think it's actually, the first thing I think is mindset,
Right.
because if you don't have the mindset, the tools won't matter. And the second thing is having a customer obsession. And the third thing is that organizational agility, where tools are a part of that. We tend to focus so much on tools because we think that's the answer, that's the anecdote. It is, but you have to know what problem you're solving. You have to know what the disease is. You have to know what the symptoms are.
So diagnosis before the prescription.
Strategy. It comes down to strategy. So people say, what's the best X tool for me to use? And I go, what are you trying to get done? I go,
I don't know. That guy's doing it.
Somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
So I go, if you don't know even where you're going, you can't be disruptive. And your guiding light has to be your customers. And they won't even necessarily tell you, which is why that obsession is needed, because you need to know your customers almost better than they know themselves.
Yeah, really to be able to know what is it that's going to be attractive to them, even if they haven't seen it yet. I think that was a much of Steve Jobs' philosophy, right?
He doesn't do market research,
but
right?
Interesting, but if you ask, if Ford had said that if you asked people what they'd wanted, they would have said a faster horse and buggy. They wouldn't have said a car.
Right. I would never have said, I needed an iPod. I would never have said I needed an iPad.
Right.
Or frankly, streaming video, for that matter, right? I have my TV. So we don't know what we need and want until it's actually put up to us. I love what T-Mobile did with the Un-carrier, because they said it's not about service and coverage and rates. It's about transparency. It's about you telling me what's really going on. It's about flexibility.
Right.
That's what I really want from a telecom carrier. But you don't get to that level of understanding until you really, really dig down deep into what are the motivations and underlying emotions that a customer has.
So hopefully your research will also share with us as we move forward, and maybe a book perhaps format, which, sort of how do you do that? How do you, if you are customer obsessed and you have that mindset, how do you actually translate that into kind of digging and what those tools look like, right?
And I think a customer obsession is creating a culture of it. And it, again, is not the responsibility of the CEO or somebody in marketing or marketing research to know who your customers are. It's in every single person's job to do that.
To know who you serve at the end of the day.
Right, but I think I just came from Southwest and was just meeting with them, some great stories, and they talk about all these times when somebody was under duress. They had to get to a family member who was sick or dying. And you hear these stories over and over again. The gate attendant will make sure that you get a ticket. My colleague is here, and she talked about a story where she had to get to her mother, and desperate to get to her mother. Flight got canceled. The Southwest person booked her on another flight and ran her to the other gate to make sure she got to the right gate. That's customer obsession, and that's putting your customer first. But more than being customer-centric, customer-focused, you're obsessed throughout the entire organization.
And do you think that's scalable, Charlene? Because that's a big thing to hear, right? Is it's easy to be customer obsessed when you have a few, but as you grow and grow and grow, is that possible to scale that sort of culture?
You have an organization like Southwest Airlines, which is why I love using them versus Apple's. I mean, they're crazy there in so many ways. But they dedicate people to people. They have a people department. They have a culture department. They have teams of people focused on this. It is, first and foremost, the number one thing that they consider themselves to be about. And I think in this time and place where purpose and mission and knowing that this organization, to a person, cares about me, it's not just a slogan on the wall, is going to be a huge differentiator. And that in of itself, the fact that we think it's so hard is a disruptive thought itself.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much, Charlene. This was fantastic. Can't wait for your new book. We'll share all the links to Charlene's work here so you can check it out. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe so you can get all the rest of our good content. See you soon.